I want to talk about my dissatisfaction with the assignments I've been given as a woman. Specifically, I have always been very aware of the parameters in which I was allowed to operate. And for me, that looks like beautiful, ashamed, silent, and of service. So beautiful. Beautiful came hard and fast at me. I shared last year that when I was 4, I really wanted to be a ballerina, and I quit because I was sure I was too fat to be there. What I didn't share is that my mom found me in the kitchen that night trying to cut myself. So it wasn't just that I didn't think I could be a ballerina, it's that I thought I was too ugly to be anywhere. And I was 4. That would go on to be elementary school. I would diet. I didn't know anything about diets, so that looked like counting Cheez-Its at lunch and really praising myself if I could remain hungry, and then feeling terrible if that darn human hunger kicked in and I ate maybe 2 snacks instead of 1. I was completely obsessed all the time with it. Something was terribly wrong with me that needed to be fixed. And specifically that if I could just be beautiful in this small and adorable and perfect way, then maybe I could be worthy. I put all of my energy there, which to me is an indication of where all of my power went. It's really hard to do anything big in the world when you're obsessed with the fact that something is wrong with you. And I was also really mad at you because I thought that when I got perfectly thin, and when I had the perfect mermaid hair, and when I got all the things perfect, that I would be like you, which was anyone but me. You know, your life was all together. People didn't give you a hard time about your body because they also agreed you were perfect and you had no insecurities, right? That's what could happen. Eventually, I lost 100 pounds. I've gained some of that back, but I have been everything from a size 26 plus. There was maternity, and also at some point, you just wear things that are stretchy because screw you, right? And then 4'6". And what I found, which was surprising to me, that at every single one of those sizes and body types, I was just handed a new list of ways I was getting it wrong. That even the women that I was mad at, that had all of the things, had a whole list of stuff that wasn't right with them. And that actually this was something very wrong that we had in common. We know that this is the first place we're valuable because this is the first place we attack women. I had to go and do a lot of research, for example, on Hillary Clinton's policies, but I can tell you a whole lot about her haircuts and her pantsuits because that's what we talk about. And if you don't hear that when you see the news, that's because misogyny is your native tongue too. And especially if you don't like her, and that is fine. It's really important that we're talking about what she can do and not what she looks like while she does it. So that's how we know this is the first thing we're supposed to be, right? And I've been doing this work for 7 years. I'm to 2 hands, I think 7 times in that time span, when people have not liked the big ideas I share on a regular basis. Instead of saying, I don't like your idea, here's another idea, they say, you're fat and ugly, shut up. But I'm preaching to the choir, right? You guys know this. So beautiful. 2, ashamed. That came early and often too. And at first it was just about not being beautiful. That stood in the way for me of what I thought I could do, maybe who would want to be my friend. But when puberty hit, it became a whole new thing. I got boobs. I suddenly recognized that I was the enemy of grown women, that men were paying attention to me in a different way, and that attention ranged from maybe I kind of like this, I have my own hormones going on, maybe this is interesting to me, to really terrifying. And it was very clear to me that my body was so shameful, that I should be so ashamed of my development, that any way they responded to me was my problem. I created that, my fault. And that's a really easy jump, and was really easy for me, that when I was abused, like so many women are, when I was sexually assaulted, I was clear that that was my fault too. That something about the shame that I carried just by waking up in the morning had caused that to happen to me. And I shared that last year. I share it regularly because that's one place we are very silent and very much, it's something that we have in common that I wish I didn't have in common with so many of you. I don't like sharing that with you, but it's important that we talk about it. What I didn't share, because I'm still unraveling some of this for myself, is that in my adult life, I have found that it wasn't the one sexual assault, it was an entire year of them. And it wasn't because I had blocked that out of my memory. It was because I had to be a grown-up with an understanding of my value before I could look at my life and see that, no, a 13-year-old girl's body is not responsible for a man's violence. I actually didn't know. And the questions I asked myself about that were the questions I had been conditioned to ask. This is conditioning. What was I wearing? Had I been drinking? Did I flirt with him? Did I ask for it? I asked those questions of myself for 20 years. So beautiful, ashamed, and silent. It's not just our abuse that we're not supposed to talk about. And I guess I don't mean silent, like we're supposed to walk around with tapes on our mouths. I mean like easy, you know? Keep it easy. Don't say like big things. Don't be confident, because a confident woman in a room is viewed as confrontational immediately. Don't have a big opinion. Be very careful of your tone. All of this is ladylike, right? I don't think I realized that that expectation was so gendered until I went to college. So college for me was a very big deal. High school and junior high had been difficult. I didn't go to school a lot. I was very depressed. I used drugs. I just would rather stay home and be high than go to school. And so college was a big deal. I was going to start over. I was going to tell a new story of my life. Maybe I could let go of some of this stuff. But I was anxious for college because I hadn't attended a lot of class, and I was worried that I would show up and find out that I was stupid. And I didn't. It turned out that I was pretty smart, and my teachers liked me, and I had picked up more in my kind of awesome public schools than I'd realized. So I was really excited for the opportunity to start clean. It was also kind of a culture shock for me. I grew up in a relatively diverse community, but definitely a very diverse home base. My friendships were very diverse. And I moved to a community that was much more homogenous. And so with that often comes a lot of stereotypes and harmful ideas about people who aren't present. And that wasn't settling well with me, and I became an activist. I got involved in activist organizations. I was speaking up. But I knew that I needed to do this in a perfect way. And so what I did is I would go to class, and I would go to work, and I would do my homework and all of the things that college students doing. And then I would pore over statistics, because I thought, this isn't my opinion, and it shouldn't upset anyone if I just give them actual information. And so I memorized like a ridiculous amount of information so I could show up in a way that I felt like was probably acceptable for me. It wasn't acceptable. I quickly began regarded campus-wide as a bitch. People would show up to my classes that I didn't know and wait for me outside just to like vet their racism by me. Like, I just want to say this to you and see what you'll say. Whenever I spoke in class, people would roll their eyes. It was like, oh, she's talking again. And, you know, being an activist and being liked by everyone don't necessarily go together, but I wanted to be heard. And so I figured there's something about me, I'm doing it wrong. And so I whittled down where and how I used my voice and thought, well, maybe I only speak on Wednesdays, and maybe only about these specific things. I'll just be very specific about these couple of things. And of course, very careful with my tone. I remember, I think it was third grade, that the school counselor came into our classroom and explained to us the difference between passive, assertive, and aggressive. I studied that worksheet. I just found it the other day, actually. I was like, I want to be perfectly in the middle, right? Because I have a big voice. I wanted to do it perfectly. So one day, I was in class. It was a political science class, and this guy that I didn't get along with didn't like something I had said. And rather than respond to what I said, he stood up in his seat, towered over me, and just began yelling stuff. And I remember I was sort of having an out-of-body experience, like, this is really bad behavior. And so I'm looking around the room, like, how else are people responding to this? This is crazy. And there wasn't any real response to that. A group of students behind me said, he's such a great leader. He should go into politics. I don't really know how to explain the impact that had on me that day, but for the first time in my life, I was considering that I had some value outside of failing at being beautiful. And then that too wasn't right, wasn't enough. And all this guy had to do was stand up and yell to be regarded as a leader. And by the way, what we say about people matters. He's a politician today. I kind of shut down. I really shut down. I went from having a 4.0 in the respect of my teachers to them knocking on my door. There was nothing I could do right. And I was academically expelled for not attending class.